If you're over 65 and losing muscle, no matter what you eat, it's not just aging. It's a hidden metabolic breakdown that no one's telling you about. But the good news? It's reversible, and I'll show you how. Okay, everyone, my name's Marc Bates. I'm a metabolic health coach, and this is part of my question and answer series. Why your muscles stop growing after 65 and how to fix it. Okay, let's get to the question. You mentioned anabolic resistance as a key factor that's often dietary rather than destiny. Can you walk me through exactly what's happening at the cellular level when a 75-year-old's muscles become resistant to growth signals and how this differs from what happens in younger adults? Okay, yeah, I can do that. So let's unpack what anabolic resistance happens at the cellular level, especially in the context of aging, and how it differs from younger muscle. But remember, this can be from 65, 75, and older. And if your metabolism is really in bad shape, it starts even earlier, in your 50s. And I've even seen some people as young as in their late 40s having problems. Okay, so this is not something that you just automatically hit at 65. All right. So let's start with what is anabolic resistance. Anabolic resistance is the blunted ability of muscle tissue to respond to anabolic stimuli, particularly protein ingestion and resistance exercise. It's a major driver of sarcopenia, age-related muscle loss, but it's not inevitable. It is heavily influenced by diet, insulin signaling, inflammation, and mitochondrial health. Okay? So let's go step by step right down the line. First is blunted mTOR activation. In healthy muscle, amino acids, especially leucine, activate the mTOR, which is the mechanistic target of rapamycin pathway, which triggers protein synthesis. In anabolic resistance, mTOR signaling is less responsive to leucine and other amino acids. Older adults often need double the leucine to trigger the same mTOR response as a young adult. Why? Well, a lot of this is chronic low-grade inflammation and oxidative stress, which interferes with the mTOR signaling and ribosomal protein translation. That's why it's not specifically to a specific age, but it can be tied directly to metabolic health at even earlier ages. Like I said, 50s, maybe even the late 40s. Okay, you gotta be really careful with this stuff. Okay, second thing is impaired amino acid delivery. With age, splanchnic extraction increases, meaning the liver and gut can take a bigger share of dietary amino acids before they reach muscle because they need it, right? This reduces the postprandial amino acid availability in circulation. The result, muscle gets less substrate to build new tissue, right? The amino acids are what you build your muscles with. And if the liver and gut are grabbing it because they need it because of your metabolic health, then you're obviously not going to be building muscle with that. Okay? Insulin resistance in muscle. Muscle is the primary sink for glucose and amino acid uptake. In insulin resistant muscle, common in aging and metabolic syndrome, so this could be pretty much at any age, insulin fails to stimulate amino acid transporters effectively, right? Once again, insulin resistance is key because insulin is part of the anabolic process, which is building muscle. This means reduced uptake of key amino acids like leucine, valine, and isoleucine, even if they're in the bloodstream. You can eat protein, but the muscle is deaf and to the growth signal. So getting your metabolic health in line is really crucial to this. Okay? 4. Mitochondrial dysfunction. Mitochondria in aging muscle produce less ATP and more reactive oxygen species, which ROSs produce inflammation. And ATP, of course, is the energy that your body runs on. This disrupts the energetics of protein synthesis and triggers catabolic pathways. So catabolic is the opposite of anabolic, where anabolic builds, catabolic tears it down. Like autophagy, so there are catabolic pathways like autophagy and proteasomal degradation, and these break down your muscles instead of building them up. So muscle protein synthesis goes down while muscle breakdown increases. This is not a good sign. Okay. Finally, we have inflammation. Aging muscles tend to be steeped in low-grade inflammation, and this is caused by the diet more than anything else, but also from cortisol and some and stress. But the diet affects all of that. Higher levels of TNF alpha and interleukin 6 and CRP, C-reactive protein. These cytokines inhibit mTOR and increase myostatin, a protein that blocks muscle growth. Chronic inflammation also impairs satellite cell activation, critical for repairing and growing muscle fibers. So you really want to get rid of the inflammation as much as possible. Okay? Now quickly, how does this differ from young adults? Because hey, when I was young it was easy. Well, mTOR response is robust in young adults typically, right? But it's blunted if the muscles are aged or if you have anabolic resistance, which goes along hand in hand with insulin resistance. Leucine sensitivity is very high in young adults, but it's reduced in aged muscle. Amino acid uptake is very efficient in young adults, but it is very impaired in the aged or those with anabolic resistance. Mitochondria tends to be very high. Young people always have lots of energy, right? And they don't put out a lot of ROSs, right, as part of making energy. Where once you're in that metabolic condition, you get low ATP and high ROS, which just keeps building upon itself. Okay, an inflammatory environment tends to be low in muscles because they're not producing a lot of ROSs, where it's chronically elevated in most higher people because once again they have years of packing on the metabolic condition problems. Okay. Muscle protein synthesis is rapid and responsive in the young and sluggish and delayed in the aged, and this has nothing to do with age, just has to do with metabolic health. And the breakdown rate tends to be balanced in young and elevated. It's catabolic in the aged. Those with anabolic resistance. So remember, anabolic resistance, insulin resistance, metabolic disease, it's all tied together. Doesn't matter really what your age is. You can have this a lot earlier than you think if you're eating improperly for your body. Okay? So, let's get this out. This can be reversed. All right? No matter where you're at, we can help reverse this. Studies and clinical experience show that anabolic resistance is largely reversible with a high quality protein intake, right? We're talking 30 grams per meal, 2.5 to 3 grams of that being leucine, right? So we're looking at eggs, we're looking at beef. We're not looking at vegetable proteins, which are not high quality proteins. Doing some form of resistance training. It doesn't have to be weights. It can be squats. It can be, for some people, it can be as much as just walking sometimes, right? You have to get your muscles moving. You need to eat a ketogenic or carnivore diet because you need to restore your insulin sensitivity and reduce inflammation. Otherwise, you're not going to get any effect on the rest of this. A key thing here is you need to think about time-restricted eating or fasting, because this helps boost autophagy and mitochondrial renewal, and that's where we're going to need to do this. Now, once again, and unless you're into being a bodybuilder, and you probably shouldn't be in metabolic problems if you're into bodybuilding, this one may be the one thing that doesn't hold true for you. And finally, there are some supplements that you can take. Creatine, which is a relatively inexpensive protein. Your body does make it, but once again, the amount you make goes down as you age, and you probably aren't making enough, okay, if you're having metabolic problems. And omega-3s are great for clearing up parts of your system, and you get a lot of omega-3s. Now, most people think of fish oil supplements for omega-3s, but my preference is quality, high quality, right? Grass-fed butter and beef. That's a great source of omega-3s. Okay, and also eating sardines. Sardines are a wonderful source for omega-3s, or herring and cold water fish. They enhance mTOR signaling and protein synthesis. In short, treat the cell's environment and you can reawaken its growth potential. All right, a lot of bad news, but some very strong good news because it's not that hard to reverse this. All right, so thanks for watching. If you have any questions or comments, put them in the appropriate section. And once again, this is a community. I'm here to try and help everyone get the answers that they want. If you have something that you want me to work on, let me know. Give me some ideas what you need, and we'll try to produce videos for that appropriately. Thank you very much. And if you haven't done so, please like, share, subscribe, because the life you're helping, maybe more than your own, could be a good friend or a family member. All right? Thanks a lot, and it does help the channel a great deal.